Magneto. Whoa. So this is an overview of the restored Zenith. There's a Zenith cobramatic mechanism. I'm not sure when it's from. When we were restoring this, we looked all over the mech, the motors, everything. We thought we found a date code around 1956, but it turned out to be a model number on a part of the mechanism. I know a lot of the mechs used in Zeniths of this time were made by VM. Because BSR's mechanisms didn't really become popular until the 70s, really. But it does have a lot in common with a more traditionally seen BSR mechanism, but also a decent chunk of difference. So this unit is an idler wheel driven mechanism, which is not the best, but certainly decent enough. I'll have it stop what it's doing so I can functionality. Love it. You know, it's enough Boz Skaggs for one little bit. There we go. So, this unit is a relatively basic looking record changer on the outside of things. Your stabilizer arm, your notched spindle, just like you'd see on a BSR, though the tone arm is definitely out of a cobramatic, because, well, this is. It's got that distinctive S-type shape, or at the very least that curves over. So it's not a straight tone arm, so it's not as prone to something like inner groove distortion by the angle of the stylus, which is something good. This is actually my first angled tone arm player, because I've only ever had a couple LP60Xs before. And you can see this one's even got the classic snake eyes. The cartridge on this has been replaced. It's a Voice of Music part I got off of Voice of Music. Had the other person I was storing this with, had him install it, because I can't solder. Now, kind of like some things, like I've had to work on a couple of the more modern suitcase style players. Those actually just have 3 wires going to the cartridge, because they actually share the grounds for both audio channels, and it's just in one metal connection. This thing, the cartridge that came out of this, is actually 3 wires, so you have to short the 2 grounds yourself to use a more modern 4-wire style cartridge. I don't know what kind of cartridge this is. Of course, it's going to be ceramic, but to be fair, the impedance of vacuum tube amplification more matches ceramic than it would something like a magnetic cartridge, and this is a tube-based amplification system. I had to get all new tubes for the audio tube, the J&J brand, the power tube, I forget what it is. That was about 100. About another 30 went towards the cartridge and the wiring kit. And then another 30 went towards purchasing a tracking gauge on Amazon that was designed as one for a spring turntable, which this is. This is not a counterweight. Well, it's counterbalanced, but it's with a spring more like an LP60, as opposed to like a 120 or many other units where it's driven with a weight. It is adjustable, though. We have to increase the tracking force, because this cartridge does track a bit heavier. It's not a micro touch, far from it. This tracks at about 4 to 6 grams. Mine's running about 5, which is about where it should be. But to be fair, it's within spec for the cartridge, and it works good. It sounds good as well. I do have one little issue, which is we adjusted it so that it falls better. Before, it was actually not even falling at all. Now it is. But I think when Rye was lubing up the mech on this, might have gotten a little bit too much grease on the drop, on the dropping section here, the back of the tone arm. So as such, it's kind of like a soft touch eject, well, it's a soft eject cassette door, rather, where it slowly drops down, and this can actually result in some issues when playing a stack of records, because it'll either not drop quick enough, or on something like a stack of 78s, it'll be slightly wonky because of the platter mat, and the tune arm will have to drift up and down with the record, and so that'll cause it to at first jump out of the record, and actually have to push it down on it. But yeah, but it's a flip over stylus, LP on one side, 78 on the other, and it is a proper 78 stylus. It's not just a sapphire. LP stylus, so that's good. If I remove Silk Degrees from the platter here, good album. Definitely had some of Boskag's biggest hits. I'll just set that to the side there for right now. You'll see that it's a metal platter with a rubber platter mat. The mat's original to the unit, so it's half shot and it's a little bit loose there. I might try and purchase a new rubber, like a LP platter mat, and try and cut it on the sides. This is a slightly smaller platter. Slightly. I think it's sized about right for 78. Let me see, actually. I'll just pop it past the lip there. I'd say it's about a 9.5 inch platter mat, because 78 slightly sticks out. But it's not a 7-inch platter. Because if I grab a 7-inch record, and again, I'll just kind of pop it past the lip. You'll see there that it's too big for a 7, too small for a 10, definitely too small for a 12, but it still works, and that's what matters. But it's not some little baby platter like you'd see in like a Crosley. This is a 4-speed unit. You've got your speed controller there, 16, 2/3, 33, 45, 78. And what's cool with this unit is it's actually one of the ones where you do not need to set the size of record. It determines it, and it's not just driven off a mechanism tied into the speed, because, well, for example, it's a 33 1/3, and it would typically drop for a piece, but I'll put a second 7-incher on. And I'll tell her to go. Now, the idler wheel in this is original. It's had about, what was it, like 1,500, 2,000 grit sandpaper taken to it to make it a little better. But it is still somewhat dry rotted, and if I don't use this thing for a while, it does run a little slow for a bit, but it eventually gets back up to normal speed. I can send the wheel off to be re-rubbered, but the problem is that's like $45, and right now I kind of can't justify it. It still runs like ever so slightly too slow, but it's enough that you won't realistically notice it. It gets like 0.5% most, I think. I don't have perfect pitch, and it even sounds good if I'm playing along on like a musical instrument or something, but I'll tell it to drop. The only other issue is occasionally the mechanism will seize, and it's not the best at dropping 7 inchers. You can see there, I have to lower it. But it did move over to the edge of the 7-inch, which is good. What is this record? Oh, it's this is a Cass. Presumably a souvenir record from Cass Railroad. It is in stereo. I do have one other issue remaining with this, which is if I tell it to drop the next record. And again, 7 inchers are not the keenest on dropping, and sometimes not all records will drop and I have to help them along a bit, but you know. And again, there you'll see there I had to help it along a smidgen because it was slipping. You'll notice it stops. I think there might be a spacer missing from the stabilizer arm to where it's tripping, though there's no records when there was one, but regardless, I can still manually start. There's no queuing lever on this, and I don't know why. Best of that. So the platter is actually spinning, but because of the way the labels are on these 7 inches, it's actually slipping a bit. Actually, hear it slipping.
Things wrong. Balance seem to be getting there.
So, yeah, but I'll tell it to switch off. I'll be prepared to help it. But it's clearly just something slipping on the wheel, because at higher speeds, I do not have any slipping issues with the mech. And again, it's just because I'm too cheap to send the wheel off to be re-rubbered right now. But it's vacuum tube based amplification. You could equip this revision of unit with a Zenith AM stereophonic FM radio. So I don't know if that means the AM radio is stereo, which this in the 50s it'd be relatively early for AM stereo. But what if I say put a stack of 78s on? So I'll just speed up and random. Got it set to 78. You'll notice here, you know, I could remove this panel and install the original radio if I had it, but I don't. Your controls here, you've got this, which is actually 2 knobs in one, and these actually adjust the volumes of the left and right channels, and they're designed to move together, but you need that to mess with the balance, which is kind of unique in a way. But they are designed to move together like that. Your bass knob, and if you pull it out, switches to mono for 78s, which I'm going to leave out, and treble, which I have those both maximized because V curves, I guess. I flipped the stylus to 78. I tell her to go. Didn't even need any help from me. This one has a bit of a crack at the edge, but only really on the edge. You can see the front of it's in pretty good shape. There's only like a little burn mark or two on the tweed. And if I close the lid, being held up by my brush there, still in good shape. And it is actually, most of the wood on this unit is actual wood. There's only a little bit of plywood on some of the inner shelves, but it's a very nicely built, it's very elegant, and I enjoy the aesthetic of it. So I was talking about stereo, mono. If I just turn up the inner knob, right side, outer knob only, bit of a struggle to do actually, left side only. It's very hard to move them separately because they're not designed to, but move together. The bass and treble controls do work. That's minimum bass. Speakers are actually still remarkably in good shape after all this time. And again, if I ever drop the next record, I was talking about where sometimes it won't be the keenest drop. And I did also notice sizably sized chunk out of the edge of this one. You can hear there where it's actually jumping out of the groove a bit. Push it down a bit, it won't be. Next record. I did actually notice the top of the part of the spindle that holds the records up for the changer action on this isn't really flat. It's actually more of a point, which could make these more prone to center spindle area damage on the records, but this is definitely acoustically recorded with all the background noise. It's also been played a pretty good amount by, believe it or not, a Edison Diamond Disc phonograph with a 78 adapted reproducer with the big steel needles. Stereo. Get more kissing stuff. And if I take the brush to this real quick, you won't want to get bought on eBay real cheap. Things much, but again, you'll see what I was talking about with the mech, because if I drop the last record, shuts off. So again, I think there's a missing spacer that I'll have to look into. But if I just set the stylus down at the edge of the record. It's amazing the quality you can get out of some of these 78s. The electrically recorded ones.
Goodbye, little chicks, we are leaving the sticks. We are catching a train at 5:45. And if anyone should drop...
For a second, I realized a lot of music about trains, about...
Won't you please tell them that we can be found walk in Atlantic City.
I'll move it around a smidgen.
Walk in Atlantic City. Life will lead peaches and cream.
Of course, these are random to me to have. I'll flip the stack over. Stabilizer. Go. Of course, I do enjoy the sound quality of this unit.
You make me feel so young. You make me feel so spring has sprung. And every time
There, I had to help it along. Didn't lift the stabilizer out of the way in time, so this one is a much smaller chunk out of the edge, so.
someday, sweetheart, what you done?
I accidentally need it, but the unit, it is, the whole mechanism is mounted on a quad spring assembly, so it is very resistant to shock, unless, you know, I need the unit by accident, but, like, you know, you can dance around it, or stomp the ground or anything, and it won't be impacted by that, and it's also not prone to feedbacking off of itself, which is also good. And of course, changer works with any record size, so I'll put Boz Skaggs on. What else? And I'll put my beat up Modern Queen compilation on as well. Best of set. My dad got in Walmart for me a couple years ago. It is on heavier vinyl stock. Feels like 180 gram. Which I will say I do enjoy the heavier stock. Versus half the stuff that was pressed in the 70s just felt like paper plates. And of course it's all copyrighted, so I can't play too much of it. But after a while, you do smell this unit a bit, and I don't know if it's dust burning off with the tubes or if it's the idler wheel. But again, like I said, I'll send the idler wheel off to be re-rubbered at some point in the unspecified future. It's just right now I just can't blow like nearly $50 just on an idler wheel to be able to re-rubbered. Again, once it becomes more noticeable, then I'll send it off and I'll slow it down to 33 1/3. And I'll flip the stylus. And then I'll drop the first record. There goes Boz Scaggs. Should be Lowdown. I'll click in stereo. I love that little, I'm presuming it's a hammer-on bass riff. What's that little bass hit, rather? Again, she did it. I'll kind of shove the brush in.
Bicycle, bicycle, bicycle. I want to ride my bicycle.
I never liked that song anyway. Flip the stack. There we go. And this is also one of the units where whenever you want to stow the tone arm, there's no clip, you just push it down harder onto the rest and it clips in, which is nice. Oops, I didn't mean to shove it in by accident. Just on the word it'll bounce a little bit. If I can get it in the right goddamn place. Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? Caught in a landslide. Should be a crazy little thing called Love, I think. Yep. I can tell that it's slightly flat, but this thing called love, I just can't handle it. This thing called love. And the flip side of Mr. Scaggs, Silk Degrees. Yeah, it kind of just flings the tone arm across. I actually heard it there bounce off the the end stop at the right side, which is, well, I find kind of hilarious. I did have the Zenith 7-inch adapter for this, but unfortunately it did not work. And in trying to get it working, I broke it to where it would look horrible. So I need to get another one of the Zenith 7-inch adapters. But I do have one ripped out of an LP60 just in the clip right now. I hope it won't be too hard to find one of those Zenith 7-inch adapters. Looks like a daggone salt shaker. Only other issue with this unit is if you take the mechanism out, you're going to have to cut the audio connection. The power is carried through a 4-pin Molex connector. Kind of like what you would see on a computer disk drive on older PCs, but it's It's not, don't be mistaken, it's AC, but the audio is by being carried through 3 channels, kind of like you could previously throw in like an 1/8 inch connector or a couple RCA jacks, because it's your 2 wires, and then the shielding is your ground. There's no disconnect on it, on either end of the connection, so unfortunately you're going to have to splice that together, but again, overall, I'm 160 in the hole on this, but I'm actually happy, because the restoration turned out really good. I couldn't be happier with the restoration. Because again, I got this unit for free. We actually found it in a long abandoned section of the old dormitory up at school, and but so yeah, and if you happen to be watching this, Ryan, thanks for restoring it. And now this thing goes back to being a stand for my laptop until next when I hear something straight off the wax. But that's all for this video, and this should be, I know I've made a lot of videos about the Zenith recently, but this should be the last because it's working. Maybe I'll show it off some more in the future, you know, if I get the rubber wheel re-rubbered, but thanks for watching.
Stop video button.